Welcome to the Abundant Accountant Podcast. This is where accountants come to learn all the ways you can grow your firm. When you are in doubt, we are here to help you out. If you're ready to learn, ready to grow your firm, then you are in the right place to sharpen those skills and increase your revenue. Welcome to the Abundant Accountant Podcast. This is where accountants come to learn all the ways you can grow your firm. And when you are in doubt, we are here to help you out. If you are ready to learn, ready to grow your firm, then you are in the right place to sharpen your skills and increase your revenue. And today on the Abundant Accountant Podcast, we are talking about why you should have a sales system. And I am joined by a very special guest who is a certified public accountant in Florida. He also holds a bachelor's degree from Columbia University and a master's degree in accounting from the University of Central Florida. Let's welcome Peter to the show.
Thanks, Michelle. I'm happy to be here.
Thank you so much for being here with us today on the Abundant Accountant Podcast. And I'd love it if you could just introduce yourself real quick to everyone who's listening today. You know, where's your firm? How long have you had it? What do you do? What do you specialize in? So feel free to take it away.
No problem, Michelle. My name is Peter Freuler. I have a CPA firm in the Orlando, Florida area. I've had the firm since 2005, so I guess that makes it now 13 years. We currently staff size, we're about 9 accountants, including myself. We've grown tremendously, especially over the last several years. Our focus is really more on tax planning versus your general compliance type of work. What we tell our clients is that we're first and foremost, we're problem solvers. So we want to help them solve the problems they're running into, whether it be, I can't understand why my taxes are too high, to I feel like I'm spending all this time trying to run my business and I can't do the things I want to do. And we obviously try to deliver solutions. Some are more bespoke than others. But really what we tell our clients is we're unique from an accounting perspective because we're not here just to deliver reports to you. Mm-hmm. We want to make things easier. We want to solve problems and we want to help you grow.
Awesome. Love it. Love it. Well, I'm so happy that you're here today on the show because I know we are going to talk about, a lot of clients have come to me asking about, should I have a sales system? I think when you start an accounting firm and you can, we're going to go into this, you don't really have a sales system or a sales process. And I think this is a really great question and topic to talk about today. And, hopefully in this podcast, it will help you figure out maybe what's the best solution for your business, or maybe what are you doing right now that maybe you're missing out on opportunities. You're missing out on future revenue, right? And, Peter, for you, when you first started your firm, did you have a sales system in place that helped you be this problem solver that you are today?
We did not, and that's actually has led to a lot of problems down the road that we've tried to fix. We are fixing, and some of it has been fixed. My first approach was if you called us, we would work with you. So that was our sales system. And that's great from a client acquisition standpoint. The problem is it's essentially maybe the equivalent of firing a shotgun pellet in the air and it spreads out into various different pellets, and whoever we hit, they're clients. We had growth using that I'm going to call it a system, even though it really has no elements of a system. The problem that we ran into with that is that we would get maybe 10% of the clients were awesome. They were just ideal clients. And we have 90% who just took up space, were difficult to work with. And we kind of felt, here we are, we're running this treadmill or this hamster wheel where we're going round and round. We're not really getting anywhere. We're just triaging whatever problems call in that day. But we really didn't have any way of identifying during the process, like, hey, is this a good client for what we want to deliver? Or is this just a person who's going to pay us something for some work that we're going to do? And I think there's a big difference between those two choices. And initially, you don't think about it. You just want to get some money in the bank account.
Right. So how do you really, get off this hamster wheel going round and round? Because you said, 10% of those clients were awesome, but the other 90 were not so awesome. And I think a lot of accounting professionals, CPAs, EAs, this is a very, very tough problem to have. And a lot of people have it. I've talked to hundreds of accountants, and this is a traditional problem. So how long were you running around on the hamster wheel, Peter? Like when you first got started?
I hate to say this, but it was almost 10 years. And
wow.
For me, the resistance was, I don't want to lose what I have. So I'm hesitant to make a change to get things that are better. And I know from a logical standpoint, having a scarcity mindset that you can't lose what you have, or why should I turn this down? This is quote unquote easy work. And so it took, unfortunately, kind of running to a point where it's like there's just no capacity whatsoever before you realize that, maybe I shouldn't be doing this type of work for somebody, or maybe this client doesn't value the expertise that I can deliver. They just want a bank reconciliation done, or maybe they just want a tax return prepared, but they're not concerned that we are capable of saving them thousands of dollars on the tax return. Mm-hmm. And so what we did is we went back and started with, who is it that we want to work with? Like, who fits us? And it's not so much, well, any client over a certain dollar amount in terms of income works. It's not the case. We went through and we evaluated industries. We evaluated personalities. We evaluated profitability to a degree. And we started this process with, who should we let in and who should we try to keep out? And at least that way we weren't flooding the system with incoming work. But at the same time, we wanted the clients to see us as more than producers of reports. And so we needed them to buy in at the beginning that they were going to be getting something different, and not just somebody who'd be willing to do the work for a reduced price, or somebody who could get the work turned around within a defined period of time.
Yeah. And so, did you do that after 10 years of, just taking on everybody and anybody? Was that a more recent switch for you?
There's a more recent switch in terms of being very rigid with the acceptance. But it was a process that we started about 3 years ago. And it really came about because internally our team at the time had a bit of I don't want to say it's a revolt, but we like, hey, what are we doing? We're just going back and forth. And, a lot of the change in terms of where we're going is, and it's funny to mention, but, if I go back to 3 years ago in terms of what we wanted, those clients today wouldn't make it through the door. So I think this is it's a revolving process. It's not something that, I'm going to spend an afternoon writing all of this down and we're all going to vote on it. And we're going to say, yes, this is the way forward. I think it's something that you have to evaluate as you go through time and as your practice develops. But, we've gone to the point where we were scared to make any changes, to now we're not so much worried if we tell somebody who says, I'm interested in these things, but I only want to work with you as the CPA. I don't want to deal with your team. Well, for us, that's a deal breaker. There's no way we're going to be able to deliver results for that client. So we'd rather that client find somebody else to work with than try to come on board and we're frustrated after 6 months.
Yeah. And I completely agree. And it's awesome that, I talk about when your value and your worth increases and you stick really close to these boundaries of, who you're going to let in and who are you not going to work with, those opportunities, you start to turn away business and you're not coming from the scarcity mindset anymore. Do you have a particular story, Peter, that, I'm sure other accountants are probably thinking like, well, how did he turn these people away? Because it's so difficult. But like one in particular that, you said, what? Thank God I did not work with that client because it could have been a catastrophe. And, you probably did turn away a lot of revenue, but hindsight now, you see it as a really big win and a big positive. Do you have anything like that happened in your practice?
I'm going to give you just a generic example. We see it more frequently now than we did a couple years ago because we were taking these types of clients on board. But generically, we'll get a call from somebody and they are behind in filings, or we have an IRS issue that needs to be resolved. So we get them on board. And what we find is that we never really make a ton of progress with them, in part because once they come on board, they sort of disappear and they go, and we understand from a client's perspective, sometimes they select you as a CPA and they go, okay, I've crossed that off my list. I don't need to do anything else. This is your problem now, and now you got to fix it. Whereas on our side, from the accounting professional standpoint, we've got a client that won't give us information, expects us to determine our own answers, and then they're upset when the results don't come in. And what we end up finding is that we can quote a fee on it that seems like it's worthwhile. But if we don't really have a client that wants our input, or a client that cares enough about trying to stay within some degree of compliance, we're going to have a headache on our hands. And so we're very careful now in terms of selecting clients that are, behind on filings. And it's not something where if somebody's on extension, are we concerned? No. But if somebody comes in and says, I haven't filed for 2 years, that's generally when we stop and say, our firm is more forward focused. We're not here to clean up messes, but we need somebody that wants to work going forward to prevent problems, not somebody who you can call because you've been given 2 weeks before a bank levy is going to be executed. And so we don't try to go down those paths. We don't, and it's funny because at one point, I had this philosophy that I could do pretty much anything a client needed to do, and we could be a one-stop shop. And now it's almost very narrow focused, where one of our selling stories to clients is, listen, this is what we do. We do tax planning. We do it really well. We're very efficient, and we want to save you money on taxes. But in order to do that, I can't do your IRS representation work on this issue. I'm not going to be the best person if you're just looking for bookkeeping. Mm-hmm. And as a side story, what we do now that maybe we didn't do 3 years ago is we say, listen, I know of a great firm that focuses on bookkeeping. I know a great firm that does excellent IRS representation work. We don't do that. Let me make an introduction to you to that firm. What we do is tax planning. If you know of anybody that needs tax planning help, if you don't mind, providing me with an introduction, that would be fantastic. But let me get you in the right hands. And, I don't have to be confrontational on the rejection. Okay. It doesn't turn into your website says you have experience on this, or I called you because I thought you could handle this. It's now, okay, you found me another solution to my problem. And believe it or not, we get referrals from that conversation, which is it's mind-boggling to a degree. Yep. But at least we've defined ourselves for our niche and what we do well. And we're not dealing with clients that just are going to delay the process for those that do fit the model.
Yep. So knowing what you know today, and if you were to go back in time to maybe 7 years ago, what would you have done differently? So for the newer accountants or, people who are a little frustrated with some of the quote unquote sales systems that they don't have currently, what are like the top 3 things, if you had to sum it up, that you would do differently today than you would have done 7 years ago?
The first thing I would have done is I would not have gone down the path of trying to provide a long list of services to clients, but I would have focused those services on things that you can charge a premium for and that you can deliver and deliver well. And that doesn't necessarily have to be tax planning. You may be an accountant that does really good financial analysis. And so you can provide some value-based CFO type of work for a client. It's just you're not going to be able to deliver that if you're dealing with 600 1040 returns that you're processing in 8 weeks in the spring.
Right.
And, it sounds counterintuitive at first because when you first start your practice or you're first getting started, you're more concerned about making sure that the paychecks don't bounce and that you got money left over at the end of the week or the end of the month. But what ends up happening is you end up being flooded with work that may not be the work that you want to do or the work that you're going to be paid a premium to do. And nothing's worse than being in a position where you're undercharging on services or on your potential, but you can't get to it because you're too busy dealing with the volume. And so I guess to circle back to the answer, I wish I had sat down and said, this is what I want to do, that I know I can charge enough to keep my doors open, but I want to do it really, really well. How can I do that? What team members do I need to accomplish that? And then that kind of works you through is how do you want to present your expertise to clients or potential clients? And then how do you move them down the sales cycle so that they become clients, but then they also fit into the other systems that you have for processing work?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Love it. What's the second thing you would do?
Second thing I would do is I would establish basically revenue expectations that I would want from the practice and how I would get there. Mm-hmm. And I think that comes into more holistic firm planning, but it also counters into what type of staff do I need in a supporting role in order for me to deliver on the services that I want to deliver on. And I know I've gone through different staff for different reasons, and I never really felt until I had an idea of what services I wanted to deliver about what staff I really needed. And so I would hire because we had work that wasn't being done, but was I hiring the right staff? And that kind of comes down to the same selection on clients. You need the right staff that can deliver the right results for you. But if you're trying to deliver everything, you're going to have a hard time finding a staff member who can do everything.
Right. Yep. And the third thing?
Third thing I would have done is I would have evaluated my pricing in order, and I think it kind of comes back to the systems, but the biggest headache I had initially is I was so happy to get a sale. I wasn't concerned about the dollar amount associated with the sale. And I had in the back of my mind that I could become really efficient at certain things. And so therefore it would be okay or acceptable to not get a premium or a high enough revenue number to make it work. And what I ended up discovering is that the only person in the office that had the expertise to do this was me. And, I shouldn't be working for less than market value. And, so I think a consideration on what you're charging for the price and why you're going to justify it outside of I deserve it is critical. And all of these things are things that just eventually they crescendo to a big enough problem you have to address it. But I really wish I had dealt with it years ago because I'd have fewer gray hairs and a lot less wrinkles. So.
Fewer gray hairs and a lot less wrinkles. I love it. So what do you think is the key that's brought your firm to where you are now? What do you think that one thing is for you?
For the longest time, I didn't really consider sales to be integrated with the running of the practice. And so as CPAs and enrolled agents and accountants, we tend to think very in systems in terms of workflow and processing. So, we have a bookkeeper. The bookkeeper needs to do a bank rec. The accountant needs to review the bank rec. And we fill out a checklist and we go. And that's designed to provide consistency in terms of the quality of the output. But if you don't have a similar approach with the sales cycle and who you're selecting for clients, the output suffers and you'll never get the consistency that you want. And for us, it was going back to, okay, how can we get clients who are okay with us working remotely versus clients that want to come in and hang out for an hour and a half to show us their W-2s and 1099s? How can we train our clients to not just call us every time that they have a question and expect that somebody's going to stop their work, pick up the phone and talk to them for 20 minutes because they want to ask whether they can deduct their pet's health insurance. And so, and I'm being sarcastic, but these are problems, and it doesn't do anybody any good if between the hours of 10 and 4 you can't get work done because there's a stream of interruptions, or we're having problems getting any of the workflow out. And so we looked at our sales process in terms of how do we start with a client to how do we get them on board, and said, is there any way that we can use this, number one, to try to weed out those who aren't going to fit? And secondly, is this a way that we can train them that, hey, we utilize technology, we work by phone or video, and we'll be able to answer all of your questions and show you value, but you don't have to hop in your car, drive an hour, and then complain to me for the first 15 minutes of the meeting about how horrible traffic was and you didn't realize it was that bad. And so, and I hope my, I
think your counterparts are probably laughing right now, like I am, because that's what your clients all do.
Or worse, they expect you to get in your car, deal with the traffic, and then waste a half a day going to see them to meet for an hour and 15 minutes.
Oh, and Peter, did you get paid for that time?
Oh, absolutely not. So, and I'm not as crazy to try to bring a laptop on the front seat, but it's.
I've done that before.
Yeah, well, you're braver than I am, but it's but the idea is that if you bring a client through the sales process and you define for them how you work and you're consistent in it, they should be comfortable when you make the handover to a staff accountant or we bring them on board that, hey, you're on the north end of town, we're on the south end, or whatever direction. Just because we're not right down the street doesn't mean we can't work together and we can't get this done. And I find that for a lot of my clients, they appreciate the fact that we're available, but we don't require them to be inconvenienced to work with us, because typically in the back of their mind is, well, I got to go make an appointment with the accountant in March, and that means I got to lose half a day, and I got to get all this paperwork ready to send them, and what happens if I'm missing a document and we got to come back again? And it doesn't have to be that difficult. So what we do initially is when we get a incoming message that somebody wants to be a client, we send them out an email, and we're working on making adjustment to this of including a video message in the email. But we outline what the steps are for coming on board or learning more about us. So we require that they complete a 5-question survey. The surveys basically tell us what you want out of your CPA, tell us about your business, tell us if you're comfortable with certain benchmarks or criteria that we have internally. So we ask if they're comfortable dealing with various members of the team as long as they get a professional answer. We make sure that they're comfortable working with us remotely. We ask if, is this something that you're coming to us because you want your bank recs done correctly, or do you want advice and help? And if they answer those in a way that we're not comfortable with, we generally stop the process or try to clarify with the client before they move forward. But the idea is I'm trying to set the expectation level one that this isn't something where you're going to come in and we're going to beg for your business. We want to work with you, but we got to make sure it works for both of us. Number two, I want control over the process. So by outlining the steps, they know that there's a structure to this. This is not a never-ending consultation, and that we're trying to deliver to them that we can bring value and that they're going to want to sign up with us at the end of this. And three, most of the clients that we deal with, and I mentioned about being a problem solver at the beginning of the podcast, most of the clients that we have a problem, they don't know how to solve it, and they're looking for someone to take leadership of the problem and fix it. And so if we present a defined system for working together, I think it provides an element of relief to them that, hey, these guys are on top of it. They know what we're dealing with, and they have a way that we're going to bring this to a conclusion with a resolution. And I think that's powerful, and I think it's on the first face of it, you don't think of it that way. But, it's helpful in that respect that you've outlined a path to getting where you want to go as part of the sales process, which means that they're going to be more willing to follow your path when you're on a maintenance type of approach.
Yeah, no. And I love that. And I see that, the sales system, and for each person listening, it does evolve over time and it's constantly changing, but you've got to stick to it. And I love that you're adding in the video message. So yippee, that's awesome. Peter, can you share, like, with each person listening, how has implementing a sales system in your firm helped your top line revenues? Because everyone wants to grow their firm. Everyone wants to get to a 6-figure firm. Everyone wants to have more revenue and have a more abundant life, right? Abundant life, abundant amount of clients that you love to work with. Not all of them, just the right ones. But how has creating a sales system helped your firm on the top line?
So we redid our sales system back in May of 2018, and it's now August 2018. And we've actually have seen a top line growth of around 65,000 over that time. And what we found is that the clients that go through the process, and not everyone signs up and is on board, but we found that we're able to better understand our clients, which is actually critical for this, because they may be coming to you and asking you to do their tax returns, but maybe the real problem under the surface is that their current CPA has no solution for the problem of paying too much in tax. It could be that they don't understand what they're doing. It could be that they just need a little bit more guidance and help getting this done. And if you don't have a sales system to kind of pick at those problems or at least identify them, all you're going to be is providing a commodity type service. And that's not going to allow you to hit the revenue numbers to achieve maybe what you want to achieve. And we try to emphasize that, we're going to go over in one meeting and talk about what you're doing and make sure we understand kind of what's going on in the background. And, but part of that is we're here to try to get these problems resolved. And I think the big thing that's led to me having the revenue growth, and to give you an idea of that, if I annualize that over what we did the previous year, we're looking at close to 20% growth. And really that's just with a handful of clients. So it's positive. But I think the thing that would make this difficult for me without the sales system is I would have taken basically transactional type of work. So I would have done tax returns. Maybe we would have done a little bit of planning, but not really for the fees we were able to command. But what will make you distinct and different and allow you to hit higher revenue numbers is you're gonna be the only one that ever asks questions about, why are you doing this? What are you trying to achieve? What's really causing this problem here that we can help? Because most other CPAs just don't think that way. And I'm one of them. I've been somebody who wants to get the prospect off the phone as fast as possible so I can get on to something else. And you miss so many opportunities is probably the major point.
How many opportunities do you think you missed prior to May and really tweaking your sales system? Because I think it's important, right? Like, we come from the scarcity mindset. Before, you were like, I have so much work to do. I don't have time to talk to new clients and prospects. But really with this shift, like, if you were to think about the opportunities missed, if you were to quantify it, if you had to take a guess in like a 12-month period, what do you think you did miss because of that?
I think if I went back like 7 or 8 years, I think my firm's revenue would be close to double if I had been doing what I'm doing now, if I started it 7 or 8 years ago. I think that it's a combination of things. I think that we took on clients that we, never had any real strong way of solving the problem that they had, or maybe we took on clients that were the wrong fit. I also think that we've missed out on clients who have had problems that we could resolve because we didn't ask the questions to find out if we could fix it, or we were so busy with other volume work that we missed the opportunity or didn't see it in front of us. And I know that sounds like a large number to say our revenues would have been doubled if we'd been doing this 8 years ago. But I can tell you what we're commanding in terms of revenues now versus what we were at the beginning of 2018, and they're not comparable. And it's positive. Nobody wants to sit around and cry about spilled milk and what's in the past is in the past. But
right.
I think there's an avenue going forward where hey, we're not going to miss out on this. And it's not that we're going to have 100% client acceptance if they go through the process. But what we want to do is we want to make sure we're commanding a premium for the services we're providing. And we also want to make certain that we're going to have the quality of life that's going to allow us to be problems fixers and not just basically pushers of documents.
Yep. Yeah, no, I love that. Well, thank you, Peter, so much for sharing with us today on the Abundant Accountant podcast. Would you like to leave everyone with one last piece of advice before we depart today?
I think the main thing I would recommend to everybody is don't be afraid of losing what you have. I would be more concerned about missing what's going to come your way, but you're not able to capture it. And I know that sounds very frightening and very bold, but what I've discovered as part of some of these changes with the sales system is that they're swimming by all the time. And you don't want to be hesitant to make a change because you're fearful of losing something you have. I would embrace trying to capture what you don't have that's better.
Yep, I love that. Thank you so much, Peter, for joining us. That's a wonderful way to end today. It was an honor to have you. And keep rocking. Keep up with your sales system.
Thanks, Michelle.
What an amazing episode today with Peter. He had so many great nuggets for you to, even if you can do one or two things and put it into action. And maybe it's putting a list together and starting a sales system for yourself. And think about, the 5 things that he mentioned. Who do you want to work with? What industries do you want to work with? What is the personality profile of the clients that you want to work with? Who do you want to let into your firm? And who do you want to keep out of your firm? So those are a few points that you can start with. But I do want to talk about the missed opportunities and how he was mentioning at the end that, the amount of missed opportunities. And if he would have had a sales system earlier on in his firm, he would have doubled his revenue. And there's this one video, and I'm not sure if any of you have ever seen it, but it's on YouTube. And I think you can Google, missed opportunities or something like that. But there's all these people passing a basketball on a basketball court. And then in the middle, there's this thing that comes across the basketball court. And if you're really paying attention to count how many times the basketball was passed to each person, you don't even see what that thing is that comes across the screen. So I don't want to totally give it away to you, but that quantifies really how many clients we actually miss. And when we're focused on the volume work, which is equally to passing the basketball on a basketball court and counting how many times that happened, we miss revenue all the time. And in order to not do that, we have to remove some stuff off our plate so we're not bogged down with the amount of work we're doing or that high volume work. So I will leave it with that. Thank you so much for being here with us today. And if you have a quick second, please leave me a rating and a review on iTunes and subscribe to the show. I always like hearing from you. And one last thing before I let you go. If you want to learn the 3 proven strategies my accounting professional clients use to easily build their accounting practice with premium clients who eagerly are willing to pay you what you're worth, then you want to sign up for my free masterclass at theabundantaccountant.com. You will learn how to communicate your value, collect higher fees with confidence, and be paid what you're worth so you can work less and make more money and have that life of abundance. Once again, visit theabundantaccountant.com. I would love to see you there. Thanks again for listening and have a great day.